All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the District of Sechelt Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, March 27th. The time is 3 o'clock. And I'd like to acknowledge that the District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continues to enrich this community. Speaking personally, I'm very privileged to work and play on these territories. So I would like to call this meeting to order and discuss any conflicts of interest. I will be recusing myself for 5.2 on today's agenda, at which point I will appoint Councillor Shepherd chair for that item. Are there any other declarations of conflict? Seeing none, can I call for adoption of the agenda, please? And Councillor Toth, Councillor Bell, all in favor? And we have business item or no appointments and delegations, and business item 5.1, official community plan kickstart. And I'm going to turn it over to Director of Planning, Andrew Allen.
Thank you, Chair Rowe. Staff are pleased to be here today to present the project plan for the OCP review. And we recognize it's going to be an entire team effort. And so I brought the Development Services Department of the Planning and Development Division down to participate, observe, and so forth. Mr. Pearson, who you know, will be providing a presentation in a moment. And of course, you know, Mr. Hall over there. And we have Marina Stepovic, our community planner, Michaela Sugars, our administrative assistant, and Mark Delaire, our planning technician, all of whom will bring their own skills and expertise to this project in the next year or so. And I was hoping that they could observe here today. So the OCP has been on the work plan for a number of years, likely since 2018, prior to my arrival in 2019. And I just wanted to give a little bit brief history of what we've done since that time and how we got to where we are today. So in 2019, the province brought in the initial requirement for housing needs reports, and we were afforded funding to do so. And the intent of the housing need report were to inform future policy reviews, such as the official community plan. And that really was a benchmark for us to work regionally. The grant funding received in province was applicable for District of Sechelt, Town of Gibsons, and Sunshine Coast Regional District. And through 2019 and into 2020, we worked on the housing needs report, followed by the implementation report, and that became our primary focus. And early in 2020, Council declared a housing emergency here on the Sunshine Coast, and that, along with the other local governments, that refocused our efforts on completing zoning bylaw 580, which had been in various forms of draft for close to a decade, and it was a priority for us. And so while doing the zoning bylaws, of course, you know, we also worked on the regulations respecting short-term rentals in residential areas, all of which on a focus on housing. So it's been our primary focus for a number of years now. And also during this time, we continue to oversee a number of development approvals, particularly some exciting rental projects in our downtown core, which are now, some of which are commencing construction. So we're quite proud of this work, and housing has been and continues to be a priority, and it will be, of course, front and center in the OCP review. Now, more recently, through Bill 44, the province has mandated further planning work to support housing, and we'll be bringing bylaws for the spring to amend our relatively new zoning bylaw. We've recently hired Urban Matters to update some statistics in the housing needs report. They were the authors of the 2019-2020 reports, and that will help also inform the OCP. So in spite of our ever-growing work demands, however, we're committed to starting this. Kevin will be the project lead, and we know we've got a mountain of work ahead of us, but we're excited to do so. In addition to that, our plan is to seek support from qualified planning consultant professionals. We started drafting a request for proposals that will be released shortly. And as we're working on that, we wanted to ensure that council knows where we are, what we're doing, why we're doing this, and so forth. And so we want to have this discussion today. Mr. Pearson will walk through the proposed work plan, where we are. Happy to receive feedback on that. Happy to receive feedback on what it is in the current OCP that works, that you like, that you want to ensure is retained. And we can be mindful of that as we work our way through. And I'll now turn it over to Mr. Pearson. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to point out, you're going to tip your cup over with your laptop before you cause a ruckus in the middle of Mr. Pearson's report. Welcome, Director Douglas. At 3:03. The floor is yours, Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just have to share my screen here. So what I've done is tried to summarize the report that you have on the agenda into a PowerPoint slide. I tried to make it a little bit more of an attractive topic with a few pictures anyways. We're talking about a major policy document that we intend to start, as Director Allen spoke to, and this has been in the council strategic plan since last October. It's considered to be a high priority in that plan. And the timeline for an OCP review, we are hoping that we can get this done by 2026, the summer of 2026. The report talks about the basics of what an official community plan is, what its purpose is, and its relation to the new Provincial Housing Statutes Amendment Act, which is referred to as Bill 44. OCPs are now required to be updated every 5 years, and that's a new provincial requirement. OCPs around the province, including the one we have in effect now, they generally cover policies related to future land use, whether that be residential, commercial, institutional, industrial. Those are the main categories, and those are mapped out. And within the color-coded maps, you refer back to the text for the policies for each of those land use categories. An OCP must have transportation and utility policies. Also, policies related to the location of community parks, neighborhood parks, and community services. Development permit guidelines are an optional requirement in an official community plan. They're not mandatory, but most municipalities do have DP guidelines, including us. And those pertain to the built environment that we have, form and character, the architectural integrity of development in terms of building and landscaping design, the natural environment, mostly the protection of riparian areas to be consistent with provincial riparian area regulations, and also to help ensure that hazardous areas are identified if possible prior to development. Another optional policy in a OCP is policies related to social well-being and best farming practices. Ideally, the new OCP will have updated community visioning, which we will gather from engagement forums and workshops and outreach. We'll have up-to-date population data, statistics, terrain analysis, sub-plans such as the master sewer plan underway, and also the master transportation plan and the development cost charge bylaw. All bylaws adopted by council have to be consistent with an OCP, and that's not just planning bylaws, it's financial bylaws, capital plans. So an OCP does have a fair amount of importance behind it. As Director Allen said, we are ready to initiate the project. We have been working on a draft request for proposal for a consultant for assistance with the project. And the report describes what we're looking for with that RFP. We do have a talented technical team here at the district, not only in the planning department, but we will also need expertise from community services, for parks, for our sanitary sewer system and infrastructure related to that. And the report talks quite a bit about community and stakeholder engagement, which has to be and should be early and ongoing. And the work plan includes significant reach out over this spring, starting with an open house on May the 14th that we have planned. We have a town planning day to kick off the OCP, but also to talk about other aspects related to our department, such as what zoning is, how Bill 44 may affect your property, and field questions from the residents. And we hope that there's a good turnout for that. This slide here is a summary of the flow chart within the report. It summarizes on one page what we're looking for. 4 major priorities with the kickoff starting now, and hopefully a new OCP adopted by council in the summer of 2026. And that would be in line with council's strategic plan. The key considerations are we want to have close alignment with historical trends, up-to-date data analysis. That's very important. The current OCP has a lot of good things in it, but it's based on data from around 2006 and earlier. So this will give us an opportunity to bring things up to date. We want a document that is clear, concise, visually interesting. We want to meet the legislative requirements of the province, obviously, and council's plan. We want to be on time and on budget. Our budget is $100,000 presently. There might be opportunity for more funding through the provincial grant that we received this year. Definitely want community buy-in, and we want regional relevance with the Sunshine Coast Regional District and Shell Nation. It's obviously on our borders, within our borders. Equal partners for sure, and the province. And we want a realistic document that people will actually read. And how do we make an OCP appealing to the public? Do we order pizza for the meetings? Would that bring people out? Maybe not, but there is a relation to a pizza and an OCP. And if you look at this pizza on the screen, it's rather loaded. It's not a simple pizza, and there's unique toppings for each piece. There's 4 pieces there, and you could look at this as almost like our neighborhoods, right? Each neighborhood in Sechelt has unique tastes and wants and needs, and we have to balance all that, but keeping in mind that the more ingredients we put on the pizza, the more complicated it gets, and the more expensive the product is. So we have to be mindful of our budget and what we have to work with here with a great team of professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Council questions. Councillor Bell.
Well, first of all, I know that this is one piece of work and it's a lot of work. So thank you to the planning staff and all the work that you're doing now. And I know that you have ahead of you, so I would just want to acknowledge that. I think I should maybe take a before picture and maybe an after picture, but I know that you're ready. Just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. You just asked about the OCP in terms of what might bring people out. And I'm just wondering is there seems to be a sort of not a good understanding of what an OCP is and what it isn't. And I think if we can simplify that as much as possible, for the public, that for our community, I think that would help. Because I certainly have heard many conversations around that, and there doesn't seem to be always a correlation in terms of what people understand. So that's just one comment. In terms of any feedback on this, I'm just wondering if there's any sort of specific questions that you'd like to have answers that would help guide our decisions as we look through this document.
Thank you, through the chair. We just wanted the committee and council to be aware of what we're up to in the department and not just jumpstart on this without your knowledge, especially the RFP and also the community engagement process. And as Councillor Bell says, educating the public on what an OCP is in simple terms. Hopefully my report simplifies it as much as possible. And if people are really interested, they can have a look at the report, and they can always call me or contact me here if they have questions. Like I'm open for that anytime. And one thing we hope as well is with the consultant that we hire, they have the expertise to present policy in a matter that is interesting. So rather than, I guess, more interesting than the report that's on the agenda, have nice pictures of what we want to see, visioning, architectural renderings, stuff that we really don't have the expertise in-house to do. So that's what we're hoping.
That's great. Can I ask one more question? Sorry, Councillor Shepherd. It was just around, you mentioned that there's a lot of expertise, like subject matter experts that are needed in this process. How are you looking at this time, at this point, in respect to subject matter experts? Do you see that this budget will be hopefully enough? And because we are in the budget process, and I'm just curious about what that's looking like at this point. It's probably not, you're not able to answer that specifically at this point. It could evolve, but curious.
That's a great question. And there's certain components of the current OCP that we will rely on and likely carry forward. But we hope to get new data, updated information on the natural environment, and that's always changing. Riparian areas, possibly areas that should be protected for wildlife habitat. And that's an example of where we don't have like biologists on staff that can help with that. But we'll do all we can with the policies that we have in place and those that work, and look at those closely. And I'm sure we will report back to the committee as we move along.
Great, thank you.
And I think I heard I just want to capture one thing before I forget that I'm not sure if it was Director Allen or you, Mr. Pearson, that said for all of us to consider what's in the OCP already that we want to hang on to, like what pieces are in that we see great value in moving forward. Okay, Councillor Shepherd.
Just two things. Yeah, I think one of the most common questions from the community associations is, will the new official community plan update reviews of individual neighborhoods? And I don't know if it's too early in the process for you to say, but that would be one question. My other question is, yeah, in terms of the environment, you've said that you're going to look at riparian areas. But obviously, one of the most significant things that has changed since the last community plan is the volatility of the environment, climate impacts. So certainly, I'll be looking to see that the environment given a much higher priority from the last community plan. But I wonder if you could comment on the neighborhoods at this point. Thanks.
Yes. The engagement strategy that we foresee right now includes reaching out to all the neighborhood associations, and I've counted 7 of them, including one overarching neighborhood committee. So I'm trying to wrap my head around how that system works. But we will engage. You know, I think, in my opinion, are we going to have different policies for Davis Bay versus Sandy Hook? When it comes to residential policies, sometimes it just boils down to, can you connect to sewer? It's that simple. And to make it more complicated than that is pretty tricky.
Sorry, just to follow up. No, I maybe I haven't framed that correctly. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to reach out to all the neighborhoods and they're anxiously looking forward to that. But it's as you say, Davis Bay has certain challenges and will have certain specific goals. So will you be updating those? You're right. I'm sure the district won't have a different policy on residential zoning from one neighborhood to another, but there are specific challenges to different neighborhoods. So would that be updated?
That's a tough question for me to answer, because basically a neighborhood plan is different than an OCP. A neighborhood plan is like an OCP, but it goes into greater detail. An OCP doesn't really get into a local road network, for example, where an OCP identifies arterials and collectors and provincial highways, for an example. It's higher level. So the amount of detail that we can extract and actually incorporate into a new OCP from each neighborhood, I can't really answer that right now.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Getting back to the neighborhoods, part of the complexity of our OCP is that the neighborhood plans were put aside and so-called incorporated into the OCP, which made it very long and lots of nice pictures in that, but hard to get to the facts. So I noticed Gibson's did not do that. And so it might be something to do to coordinate, do something simpler like Gibson's and sort of bring back those neighborhood plans, because I think the neighborhood plans, I would like to get my hands on them. They're very hard to find. I understand the planning department has them. The community association has been looking for them, may have them, but they're supposed to be in the library. They're not. They're supposed to be in the archives and they're not. So I think it'd be good to start with those. I mean, I know they're outdated, but it gives the whole history and context. And also they're a handy thing to use for emergency planning because they are local based plans. And I know the community associations want to get, regardless of the OCP, they want to get going with emergency planning. So it might help us kind of build that infrastructure and identify it at the neighborhood level, how neighborhoods can do that, and to have them look at their own plan helps. So from the bottom up, it's good to plan. Also from the top down, really the strategic plan has focuses of sustainability and resilience and incorporating our love of nature in this community. It's not just about development and projecting numbers forward for population. Certainly isn't. And we know the future is not the same as the current, okay? I mean, we're in a climate problem here with water. So another overarching thing has to be working with the RD and Sechelt Nation with a top-down approach to water, because we know, we have to plan for so much that we have. We can't go over that. It's the cautionary principle that we need to take. I don't think any resident would deny that. And that's not something that was in the previous plan. I also don't think it's time to go for an RFP right now. I think we need to flesh this out much more with some initial community consultation. And I would like to see our planning department, especially our community planner, taking a big lead in this and working with our communities and rebuilding that trust and rebuilding, those plans to come forward with an overall official community plan, because I think that's been lost along the way. Hiring consultants right now is going to be hard. We've already heard that there's no planners for hire, and every municipality in BC is looking to update all their plans and that. So I think if we could start off with perhaps some money for a facilitator would be helpful. And to later, once we have perhaps like a project management plan of what exactly we feel we want to do and when, then you can hire a consultant, because then they'll know what we want of them. But right now, to just say we want to hire you to do this, I think it's way too vague at this point. And I would like to see some local community emergency planning based on neighborhoods, start with that, and give people a chance to really participate. Thank you.
Sorry. Nope, we're good. Any other questions? Counselor Inkster?
Just to, through you, to hope that's in the plan when, by the way, too, I just wanted to make sure too, the funding was from taxation for this. It's a little confusing when I see the financial implications. Yeah. Just before I ask my other questions.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Through you, Chair, I can expand upon that. Yes, that $100,000 is through taxation, and it's been on the books for a number of years. We did receive approximately $200,000 from the province for capacity funding for Bill 44, and that's where a modest contract for an update for our housing needs report is coming from. So we have funds there. And I may say come October or November, without additional funding, we may come back and propose what it might look like for the following 2 years as well, depending on how things go this year.
Okay. So I'm hearing that it's carry forward is what I just heard from previous years. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, great. Thanks. Just speaking to the plan, we'll call it, the plan moving forward. First of all, we just, one of the things we need to be kind of cognizant of is when we speak of our neighbors, we probably want to take the approach that we're within their boundaries when we talk about the plan, not there within our boundaries. Because this is their SWIA, right? So we got to be really careful how we approach that. The things that I wanted to see was the public consultation piece. I think at the initial phases needs to be fairly robust. So what you may have to do, and it might have to include yourself, Mr. Allen, is the downtown one. You may need to do an area specific downtown one because of the density issues. And then perhaps if identified in other ways, West Sechelt because of its growth, because of where all the growth is occurring. So those are things to consider as you go forward, because that's where you're going to get pushback if we don't do proper consultation. And what I wanted to mention was I hope that what we contain within the plan from an ecological perspective is some oceanside mitigation and enhancement discussion and plans. I hope that we start to plan and/or project as we move forward as a municipality, more wildlife corridoring throughout our municipality. I hope that we do more planning around micro watershed protection. And I hope that we consider more clearly and through park planning and more of a clear that we've done previously, but it's not been mentioned in the last number of years, is the naturalization of our parkland. So the playing fields are obviously not naturalized and they're used for their specific use, but there's a number of our treed and ecosystem specific and watershed, micro watershed areas that need some naturalization considerations as we move forward. So it's how we plan our access to and our pathways through those parks, and how we don't inundate those particular naturalized areas with footpaths everywhere, that we understand that there's wildlife that lives in there. So Madam Chair, those are my initial comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Inkster. I just want to, my one thought is around engagement and I'm quite confident that the community associations are going to come out and engage with us, but they do not, the percentage of people that they represent as members does not represent the entire community. So I really want us to do all that we can as council as well, really to harass the people that we know to engage in this process. Because we'll all hear about it. So they may as well. We need them engaged. Councillor Toth, was that a hand?
It was. Thank you, Chair. I'm looking forward to this process. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to try and have some fun with it. I don't think planning needs to be boring and stuffy. And I think if we can make it a little bit fun, we're going to have an easier time getting people out. So I hope that staff will, as you said, Chair, reach out to more than just the community associations or the Sechelt Nation. And if there's any way that we can help, get into schools or senior centers or service clubs that we might know or be part of, things like that, like by all means, use us. We're here representing the community, so we might as well do everything we can to help staff in this endeavor. So those are just my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bell? Oh, sorry, she had her hand.
Councillor
Oh,
McLaughlin.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm just wondering, there's a mention of a regional context statement. Are we going to have one of those? Because it's not really something that we've had in the past. And I don't know if all the planners in the area have discussed moving forward with something like that, because I think that's important. If we can move together, it means you're going to commit to certain things together in that statement. And I thought we did approve some funding for an OCP consultant already, and I was just wondering, I recall some reporting on them doing research and such, so I just would like an update on that, and how much has been spent to date on that. And the schools are very important. School districts with this new Bill 44 zoning, they don't know what to expect. And I've looked at the capital plan, we're pretty much at capacity, so we need to do some planning with the school district in terms of demographics. They have pretty good demographics, probably, because it's important they count the children, and they do it from the birth up. They do cohort survival method to get accurate demographics, not just a line on a chart going up. And so that's really important, because we may need school sites. We may need to help them with things. I think the school sites are pretty, certainly West Sechelt has had renovation addition after another. So that is an issue. So I think planning with our major partners for starters, I think is important, because, we can dream up and let people come with a vision for the future, but honestly, we have to plan within parameters that we know exist. So, don't let them ask for the sun when we only really have the moon, honestly. And we're 5,000 tax bills approximately residentially, I think. So that means we can only really afford to. It'd be great to have a beautiful OCP like a major city, but we're not. We're just a small place with relatively small budget. And that's why I really do want to see if we can leverage our staff to do it, because honestly, the staff know this place. I mean, the ones that have been here a long time certainly do. And consultants, I find hiring consultants, sometimes you spend half your time just trying to bring them up to speed, quite honestly. And so I would like to see initially for work to be done internally. And like I said, with maybe a facilitator, if that helps. Thank you.
Okay, so I heard a couple questions there. Any comment about regional context statement?
Thanks, Madam Chair. A regional context statement does not apply to this OCP that we're talking about, because that has to really come from the regional district, whether a regional growth strategy is in the works. And from my understanding, there is no direction to have a regional growth strategy from the regional district, or ask for the neighboring municipalities, Gibsons and Sechelt, to be part of a regional growth strategy. There was a scope analysis, a scope report presented to the board last January, and it just discussed some regional planning issues, but there was not much mention of a regional growth strategy. The second question about an OCP consultant already been hired, I don't know the answer to that. But as far as the school district is concerned, they are actually the major stakeholder in an OCP. They are the one agency that we are required to consult with, and not consult with, but work with, and actually obtain data from them and their plans. So that's crucial. The third question was, I can't remember.
I think that those were the three that I had done. Do you have a comment, Director Allen?
To supplement the regional context statement, that is a function of a regional growth strategy. And to pivot or to supplement on that, the town of Gibsons is working on an official community plan. They're just starting. The regional district is working on consolidating their 7 OCPs in their 5 electoral areas and just starting. So the time is nice to continue our cooperative work we've been doing the last 4, 5, or 6 years and work together in some of those regards. And we will, and we meet, we have quarterly regional coordination meetings and so forth. So that's underway. It's just not a formal regional context statement that you might see, but we'll look at something along those lines in that similar regard. And I do agree with Councillor McLaughlin, the premise of the impact of Bill 44 on schools throughout the province, particularly in the urban areas. And we absolutely will and do work with the school board and have discussed capacity issues and boundaries with them over the years, and we'll absolutely continue to do that. I'm not sure what the uptake of Bill 44 will be on the ground, but we have our obligations and duties, which will be coming back to you folks in April and May and June to resolve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell, I think.
Thank you, through the chair. Mine is just a follow-up in support of Councillor Toth's comment. This is, I think, a great opportunity. This is something new. It's some of it's mandated. It's time. It's going to be for some a significant change. And so the more we can involve our community partners, the better. And what I mean by that is I've been finding out more about this because I'm doing some of this for our MP. And just things that I didn't really even think about was phoning the senior center, and they do information sessions all the time. The Sea Child Senior Center, the Gibsons. Now, in that case, this wouldn't be applicable. But ask Angie for the In Coast Reporter. Loves to have some information around what's happening in the community. You know, there's lots. So I think our community partners would step up and help us get this information out. And then I think it would be so important to get them involved and let them be part of our communication system. And I know that they'd probably be very open to helping. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Thank you.
All right. So we will move on to 5.2. And I will step out. Do you want the gavel?
No, I don't anticipate hitting anyone. So item 5.2, letter SCRD request for cost sharing for Sunshine Coast Arena water well investigation. So who could give us the background on that request? Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor Inkster is welcome to chime in if I missed something here. During the budget process, the board did approve the $63,000 mentioned in the letter to do an investigation of the well that exists up at the Sunshine Coast Arena so that we could possibly move forward with the project to incorporate the use of the well in ice making operations at that arena going forward. We had hoped that it would be a fairly simple, straightforward affair. Records are lost, conditions are unknown, things of that nature. So the first sort of phase of this project, which is what the letter is really speaking to, is that $63,000 to determine the capacity, the condition, things like that. Now, my recollection, and again, Councillor Inkster can correct me if I'm wrong, my recollection was that the intention of the board was to spend that $63,000 from the Growing Communities Fund. The approach for the cost share was to ask the district of Sechelt to contribute to the construction phase of that project. Because $63,000 is not going to be enough to investigate and build. And so my recollection from the conversation was that the 63 would be committed from the Growing Communities Fund, but that the district of Sechelt would be asked to possibly contribute in subsequent years for the actual construction of that system to connect it to the arena. Councillor Inkster might recall differently, but
Over to Councillor Inkster. Any recall? Thanks.
Certainly not total recall. Yeah, I think that the part where why this would come to us is that the origination of their funding comes from the rural areas as part of the growing fund. So that's why there would be a piece for us to be taking part in. So as Councillor Toth described it, that's the approach. I have some further thoughts, but that's why it's come to us. Water's important, and as we know, we're talking a lot about it, and the more wells we encourage in the Sechelt area in order to provide water for probably the largest community user as a community, the better off Sechelt will be. So that's why we need to be seen as partners in some of these regional district proposals. And Chair, I have further thoughts once we go further into the issue.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, through the chair. So I might have missed information, but this I'm seeing as more of an ask in principle at this point. There's no numbers at this point on the table?
I
For
mean,
the
that's why I find this very confusing. The only ask I see is to participate in the $63,000. And yet, according to Councillor Toth, the participation on the part of the district is really for the next phase, a construction phase. So I'm sort of confused by the ask.
Me too.
thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I think that was the vagueness in the resolution that the board made, asking that the district of Sechelt be approached for a potential cost share opportunity. I do have a recommendation here that I would be happy to make based on how I feel about it, this particular project, and I guess we'll see if it gets seconded and where the conversation goes. So my motion would be that we respond to say that while we don't feel that we can contribute at this time, we look forward to the possibility of contributing to the construction phase of the project.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Do we have any further comment on that motion? Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Well, isn't this really in a sense like any other well? If we're getting water, it's a well. Why do we not just leave it as one of the numerous well projects? Also, I thought for hockey skating at a higher level, that well water is not good enough. They want tap water to make better ice. So I can't see the purpose of this at this point. They want to go ahead, fine, but I don't want to see us obligated to, because of this, vagueness, to be obligated for construction year after year and I don't know what. And for a hockey rink, we need to review all of our SCRD facilities anyway. And so it seems like the cart is before the horse here. Thank you.
Councillor Inkster.
From the discussions we've had, this would be an additional well, other than the ones that they proposed in the Sechelt area. It would be a well on top. And the reason that they're looking at this is that it is true that the rec facility that's there uses water at certain times of the year that may be better used for residential use. So if we look at trying to put water from the well into the facility, then they don't need to draw on treated water. The comment that they don't like well water, I've never heard that before. reason why they would hook up to municipal water was a predictable, guaranteed flow of pipes that were already in place. You also need to consider too, though, that if we don't look at water for that facility and there's pressure that includes, and I don't mean water pressure, I mean public pressure to not put water in that facility when the numbers of users need it, then you start moving in a direction of wondering whether the facility itself is viable. And then you start getting into the discussion whether it is viable when in fact, with the junior team coming, they need both facilities. So you start to go down a really slippery slope when you start to not look at water alternatives, other water alternatives for that facility. You need to keep the big picture in mind here. Thanks, Chair. And I also wanted to mention, sorry, Chair, that if what I'd like to see in future, before I forget, is that I think that they would be the providers of the water, the regional district, but I would prefer that we look at owning this well. Thanks.
Sorry, just before I get to Councilor McLaughlin, just to clarify, so this is an entirely new well that the SCRD is looking at?
Not necessarily. There is an existing well up there on the property. It's District of Sechelt property, as we all know. And so this investigation is to determine whether the existing well that's there is viable, can be used, if the water quality is good enough that it can be used, if the sanitary seals are still in place, things of that nature. It's a very technical analysis of the existing well. There isn't any contemplation to drilling an additional well on that property.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes, further through the chair to Councillor Inkster's comment, where did I hear that the treated water was required? It was when for the Gibsons Arena, when the hockey team was being discussed, the junior hockey team, and that it was brought up that they need to have treated water for the ice that they need. So why they need it in one place, not the other. Now, you just said that they're going to be playing hockey both places. I just find this to be kind of mysterious. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other comment? Mayor Henderson has just joined us. Do you have any comment? There is a motion on the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair. Please.
I'd like to know what the motion is, but the overall comment I have is that we pay for water through our water fees. So I struggle with how this is equitable. It seems to me there's in principle, at least, we'd be paying twice.
Perhaps I can have the motion read out again for Mayor Henderson's benefit.
The motion currently is that while we don't feel we can contribute at this time, we look forward to the possibility of contributing to the construction phase of the project.
Thank you. Yes, so we're saying, if I'm summarizing this correctly, that we're not interested in contributing to any part of the $63,000, but we are interested in looking at the next phase of the project, the construction phase, with no obligation to contribute to that either, if I understand that correctly. Councilor Inkster.
Yeah, just a clarification on previous comments, just through you to finance. Have we spent any money on other water issues in Sechelt? How much did we spend on the Dusty Road issue?
So far to date, we've spent either very little or nothing.
Okay, and how much were we looking at spending if in fact we've spent nothing on the Dusty Road project to look at the water? Because there was some discussion of some amounts which was supported by council. So if we're committed to not paying twice for water, because I'm just I just think this is a good idea to create more well opportunities in Sechelt and perhaps own a couple of them. If as a council, we decide that we only pay once for water, then we can't really look at Dusty Road again, because that's now our basically our decided policy. Can't look at Dusty Road again as water, although there's a large part of the community that wanted us to consider that. If we can't look at the arena, if it's based on one bill for water, but we can't do it in Sechelt, then we should really just leave all the water procurement to the regional district, if that's what council wants to do.
Do you have a specific question for Dr. Douglas?
To me, I was asking, and my specific question was, how much had we spent and how much did we propose to spend? In waiting for that figure, I was saying, and if we are committed to a council to not spending any money on looking for other water in the district of Sechelt, if that's now our new policy, then we need to maybe make a motion. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Bell and then Mayor Henderson.
Through the chair, I don't have any further discussion around adding anything further around discussion. It was more around the new motion. And what I recall it saying is we look forward to contributing. Is that's, yes, sorry to ask for that again, but.
Not at all.
yeah,
Please,
could you please repeat.
one more
Sorry.
time.
Mhm.
Good, thanks.
The motion reads, we don't feel we can contribute at this time. We look forward to the possibility of contributing to the construction phase of the project.
Okay, great. Thank
Does
you.
that help?
Yeah, that's good. The possibility, Thank you.
Mayor Henderson.
Thank you. I heard that a little different. I'll come back to my first comment in a minute, but we look forward to contributing implies that we're anticipating that the answer will be yes to, and I didn't hear that earlier. So the possibility. Yes.
So Councillor Toth is emphasizing the possibility of contribution.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. My other comment relates to, I perhaps wasn't clear enough. We already pay the SCRD for drinking water. We have non-potable sources of the Water Resource Center, and my understanding of their direction to staff was for Dusty Road to be assessed as a non-potable source of water. So that is different than what we're paying the SCRD for. Thank you, Chair.
I think we've exhausted all comment, so I'm ready to call the motion. Sorry. Please.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. Director Douglas has been trying to catch your attention too, so I'll defer until after Director Douglas.
No, it doesn't.
No? Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention was that if we eventually opt not to cost share on this project with the SCRD and the SCRD decides to go through with it anyways, we'll still be paying twice because it'll be regional recreation that pays for it. And we participate in regional recreation. So we're participating and paying for it anyways. It's just whether we want to officially participate. Thanks.
Councillor
If I could just
McLaughlin.
comment, thank you, through the chair. I mean, you can say it's a possibility, but like just locally, but actually it's a high probability that we would be cooperating and paying. I mean, it's just open to interpretation. So I find if we say we are interested and we're probably going to, it usually, yeah, it does usually mean we're kind of obligated because,
No.
Yeah, I think I
well,
think,
that's my interpretation. Okay.
Okay, I
And
think-
so
yeah.
That's how I see it.
all right.
And also I would like to see us perhaps look at other sources of water, for instance, the use of commercial and industrial water. It could be a lot. And rather than worry about finding wells all the time, we should really be looking at some of those uses which are not discussed, not monitored, and probably not charged for in terms of what it's costing us to look for all these wells for residents. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bell.
Yes, through the chair, I disagree with Councillor McLaughlin. Probability is an assumption, and I would like to go back to the emotion again on the table that says a possibility, and I would like to call the question on this.
Okay. Thank you. Calling the question on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Councilor McLaughlin opposed? The motion is passed. Are there, I think that's the last item, so I will call an adjournment. All those in favor in adjourning? Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
Just before you adjourn, could I thank the chair for all his hard work?
It's too
Oh,
late.
sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Any questions from the gallery?